At the end of my meeting, he gives me a check for $2 million, and I think it's my second, maybe third day in the business. So I said, Mr. Abear, I don't want to be rude, but how did you get this money? And he walked me to the side of his house, and what used to be rice fields was oil derricks as far as the eye could see. Mr. Abear was making $8 million a month in oil royalties. If I would have drove up, looked at the house, and kept driving, I would have missed that opportunity.
By the way, that is like the best story ever.
Every leader needs a trusted partner for the moments that matter. This Bold Business Podcast conversation is that partnership. Your go-to resource designed to break the inertia and refresh your perspective so you can start making moves. Here is your host, an insightful truth teller who serves as the catalyst for getting the right work done and who asks the questions that truly matter. Jess Dewell.
We all have ideas of scaling and sustaining innovation. Scott Kelly, the CEO of Business Accelerator Black Dog Venture Partners and founder of VC Fast Pitch, has been on both sides of that equation, the building and scaling and the investing of those building and scaling. For over 30 years, that's 3 decades. Yeah, 30 years. He's been taking his innovative skills and all of the experience that he has been building, and he's trained thousands of salespeople and mentored as many entrepreneurs. So his network is vast, and he wants to help founders and investors scale and innovate and ultimately succeed. And how he does that is very interesting. I'm going to start you out with these 3 things to listen for. The first is that our growth journey is ours. It's ours to find, and the clues are there. Will you listen? The second is that it's really important to know what we're good at and get very familiar with it so we know what we're not good at too. And the third thing is there's always changes to the way we do business, and it's quicker than ever before. So recognize and harness exactly what is needed today for you, for your industry, so that you can achieve the most success with being intentional for your own success. I can't wait for you to hear the whole conversation. Let's get to it. I want to know, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's interesting you say that. I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 11. And basically, what I was doing then, I did all the traditional things, set up a lemonade stand and some other things. But then I built a pretty lucrative business in trading cards, baseball cards. And basically, I would buy them in bulk and sell them to my friends. And so I knew then I wasn't set to be an employee. I tell everybody, I think I would work for somebody else. I think my entire career, maybe 18 months. And I tell people that's because I'm a bad employee. I'm a good employer, but a bad employee. So I learned pretty young. That's where I was going.
Okay, so what are the elements of a good employer?
Flexibility, compassion, the ability to lead, the desire to coach. Those are the attributes that have been successful for me.
So what are the attributes of a bad employer?
Yeah, I believe I like to empower employees. I think that is a really bad thing for employer to do is micromanage people. You have to hire slowly, fire quickly. When you're hiring slowly, you need to make sure that they have all the tools they need to be successful and you give them the power to be successful. Because the reality is, if you give someone responsibility without authority, it becomes anarchy, in my opinion.
Fair. There, it becomes real risk, and anarchy, I think, is one of those most common outcomes, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. I find that interesting because you also work in a place where you do VC funding, so people want this so they can scale and grow and hire fast. So that's
Right.
like a polar, those are the polar opposites of each other. So explain that to me.
I think the reality is that companies of all sizes at some point come to an impasse where they might be able to sell their way through their financing, but then some of them have to find financing, whether that be debt or grants. And I work really on the equity side of the business. And the reality is that the large use of the proceeds of a lot of companies is to hire more staff. And if you're an investor investing in a company, you need to make sure that they're hiring the right staff because if they don't, You get turnover, you get bad results, and that leads to underperforming investment for the investor.
I was going to say wasted money.
Absolutely.
Do you go out? Do you actually say that to people?
I have,
Yeah.
yes.
And I'm thinking about what's funny is in our household, right? We come from a technology realm and a background, and my husband is a technologist. And so he's rewatching one of his favorite shows, Halt and Catch Fire. There are some parts that are very real. There are parts that we have experienced. There are parts that are very harsh. Yet, even though they're harsh, I'm going to go back to the compassion piece. In the moment, they felt harsh for the sake of being harsh and like failure. But looking back and that reflection piece, there's actually a lot of compassion in there. So, can you tell me a time when you've thought about, like, how do I say this compassionately? Is there a way? Can they receive it this way? That two-way street of communication that maybe doesn't always come through.
Yeah, I think obviously I've had to hire and fire hundreds of employees and staff and consultants in my career. And I've tried and for the most part been successful in terminating relationships positively. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is that obviously I think a lot of times both sides come to the conclusion that it's not working out. One of them has to act on that conclusion. And when I do it, it's look, if this is not a right fit for me, but it is a right fit for somebody else, let me help you find that somebody else. And so, obviously, in addition to giving them some recommendations and advice, we want to turn a positive because I've had instances where, quite frankly, there are employees I had to let go but I maintained the friendship and the relationship. And then they became very successful. And quite frankly, they became clients or partners
Yeah.
afterwards. It just wasn't, sometimes it's the personality fit, sometimes they're not suited for the job. I started out as a programming major, that lasted a semester. I spent another semester as an accounting major, realized those two things weren't me. I ended up getting my degree in marketing and finance. So I had to find my way to the thing I was best at. A lot of times that's what most people have to learn.
Who told you? Who gave you one of those harsh truths? And did you take it? It was actually compassionate.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I have never been fired from a job. I quit several jobs. I remember at one point I started out as a stockbroker and I had a very successful career with this firm for a couple of years. And I remember one day out of their several hundred representatives, I was the number one producer for the week. And I broke every record by fivefold. And then the CEO decided to host a party at the other office for the firm's record week. And I go, wasn't I pretty much all of the record? So that was a little disheartening. Fast forward, I realized very soon after that I was making my commissions were three times the CEO's salary. And so I really came to the conclusion, okay, I need to be somewhere where I can really, grow. And that was really where I came to the conclusion I was a bad employee and decided to become my own boss and run my own company.
So you were actually feeling were you actually feeling the upper limit of growth in that organization?
Yeah, I think what I found in my early years in sales is they take the best salespeople and they put them into middle management. And so they take a pay cut
Yeah.
and they take away the real skills that they have and replace them with the skills they don't want to use. That was happening to me.
I think that's very true. There are some people, and I'm one of those, right? It sounds like you're a fixer in your own right. It could be a starter, a new idea. It could be a shake it up, a
Yep.
tear down and rebuild. There are all kinds of things that fall into that category of there's this thing that does really well for me that brings me joy. And how do I use this? What I find interesting is even today, with all the technology advances, I'm finding there's still this push of, you got to get a job, you got to have a skill. You got to do this thing. And you and I are examples of the opposite of that. By the way, I'm watching and I'm thinking, and I fight this as a parent. You got to get a job. Your grades got to get you to the next level. And I have to step back on a regular basis, which, by the way, changes the way that I wish I had learned, I wish I'm a parent less long than I am a business owner. So I wished I learned this lesson before I had a child because it works in business too.
Mhm.
Of how can I show up and make sure that I'm not accidentally bringing a an untruth or something I don't actually believe into the way we do our work.
Hmm.
Have you
Right.
ever had to face that for yourself?
Yeah, obviously I have two boys. One's out of college and has a successful business on his own. The other is a senior in college, and I try to tell them in the beginning, you may go in with one idea what you want to do. It's going to change multiple times. And one thing I learned with my two boys, and I tell everybody, is that as a father, from 15 to 25, nothing. And then my oldest son turned 25 last year. And it was like an epiphany. All the things I tried to tell him advice wise, all of a sudden he believed. But I still have one son in the cone of doubt. And so that's obviously that's something I learned from being a father. A lot of those things apply in business. I work with entrepreneurs all the time that get tunnel vision. They think their idea is the right idea. They're the right person to handle everything. And they soon learn that's not the case.
Yes.
It's again getting back to my sons. I can tell them not to touch the poison ivy. They will stop touching poison ivy once they touch it once.
I can tell you live in actually, I love that. I know that people tend to use the stove idea, but let's just be real. We're an adventurous family too, and I might have to use your analogy of poison ivy because it's way more applicable to the way we live and the hobbies that we have
Right.
as well. What are some of your hobbies?
I live right on the water, so
Mhm.
I kayak. I just began kite surfing, a little bit of tai chi. I'm a workaholic. I love what I do. I tell people I've unsuccessfully retired twice in my life, so I really have a passion for what I do, and that takes a lot of my time. I travel quite a bit. My fiance and I are going on a cruise in a couple of weeks. We go to a lot of concerts. Those kind of things I like to do.
What kind of concerts?
Quite frankly, many of them. We're actually going to go see Stevie Nicks in
Yeah.
December. We were scheduled to see Billy Joel, but he got sick, unfortunately. We've been to a lot of, I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a really good downtown music town. So there's a lot of local bands, jazz bands, and reggae bands that we like. But ironically enough, I actually can't play a lick of music, but I invested in a record label and got a gold record. So I try to use my business to
Mhm.
motivate my hobbies and vice versa.
Stevie Nicks, was she part of Heart?
No, she
Okay.
was. You caught me here. It is my fiance's favorite artist. I honestly, you're gonna have to edit this out and AI the name. I just don't know.
We're going to do a quick Google search. This is not something we usually do in our conversations, but now I want to know. Okay. Because I'm like, hang on, I got this wrong. Okay. So Stevie Nicks. Okay. So let's just look and see. Fleetwood Mac. Ta da.
Thank you.
Sometimes we're focused on other things and we cannot recall as fast as you. So thank you for playing along. I only have one child. He's 14 going on 30. So he's right on each side of you called it the cone of doubt, which I love because I went, ooh, I know where that is in business. Oh, yeah. So here we go. And I think that's really interesting because how many people out there do you actually think take the time to find their right journey?
It's interesting you say that because I think that the makeup of someone being an entrepreneur is unique. I think, much like you mentioned before, a lot of people just go through the motions, go to school, get a job, retire, or leave and go to another job in the same industry. I think being an entrepreneur is, for me, one of the greatest things you get to do, but it's also one of the biggest challenges because having a great idea is wonderful. Being able to execute on it is the real superpower. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of us have out there. She has a great job working for a great company, but she is not inspired. She's not impassioned. And for me, I have to be mentally, emotionally, and socially entertained. And I do that by being an entrepreneur.
I understand everything that's in front of me is my favorite thing.
Appreciate that.
And the next thing will be my favorite thing. And that's actually something that people told me, you got to remember all of this stuff. And I'm like, why? I want to be really present right now. I can capitalize on this.
Sure.
And I don't know if that really makes a good entrepreneur or not. It sure does make great conversation. And that through that conversation, learning, risk, exploration of ideas. And usually, even though there's a lot of good ideas that are probably good enough, there's usually one or two in there that are the right thing to
Mhm.
take to someplace else, whether
Sure.
it's share with another company, whether it's give in a mentoring situation, whether it is conversation over dinner, whether it is I hadn't thought about it that way. What if I listen today through a new lens? And I think that all of those things are what come of my being super present. What's your superpower?
I think my superpower is my ability to multitask and to come up with ideas and conceptualize them quickly. I've launched several companies on my own, and I work with a dozen companies simultaneously. I think my superpower is I'm very efficient about how I get things done. I'm a very quick study because I am a relatively good speaker and a pretty good salesman. I'm able to move quickly and work on the fly and talk on the fly. I tell people when I was a kid, I was good at doing two things: getting into trouble and getting out of trouble. And I apply those same things to my career in entrepreneurism.
I think your superpower is getting into trouble and being able to get out of that same trouble.
Sure,
Because
sure.
doesn't every little bit of trouble come from a good quote unquote idea?
I'm in the idea business, and the vast majority ideas are I get probably 300 pitch decks in my inbox every
Yeah.
month. There's probably two or three that hit my LinkedIn while we're on this call.
Yeah.
And the reality is, there's a lot of good ideas, but there's a lot of bad ideas. And,
God.
and the difference is knowing what they are quickly.
Feeling stuck? Like, what got you here won't get you there. The pressure to grow is on, yet the path isn't clear yet. You don't have to walk that path alone. This is the Bold Business Podcast. Like and subscribe wherever you listen. Your host, Jess Dewell, is the strategic partner you've been looking for, asking the questions that truly matter. It's time to break the inertia and get the perspective you need to make your next move.
I'm really excited to be talking with Scott Kelly, the CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners, and we're going to get back to the show. What is a good idea quickly versus the bad ideas that might be okay, but not the idea?
I think a lot of it is I have being around for many years and doing this, I have two things primarily: experience and perspective. I have made and lost millions of dollars myself on good ideas and bad ideas. So I can speak to that to the companies that we work with or invest in. I think the other thing is that I try to have a relationship where it's open communication.
Mhm.
And I like the entrepreneurs I work with to tell me the good news and tell me the bad news. It's like my kids. They're both very good students, and they're well-behaved kids. Every once in a while, they come home, and I know they did something wrong, and you might as well just tell me because I will find out. And the same applies in business. You can hide for only a short period of time when you make a bad decision.
True that. And okay, I have so many places I want to go. Scott, let's see. I'm thinking about emotions because we're talking about being able to discern. We're talking about good ideas and bad ideas. We're talking a lot about compassion too, right? Some of these skill sets that are here. How about if we start with I feel like emotion belongs in here.
Mhm,
I'm not sure about you. I know from my perspective and my journey, I have carried a lot of guilt. I have carried a lot of shame and embarrassment in times that it was warranted, but most often not. I was
mhm.
taking on these things in the wrong way. I still find myself doing that sometimes. Oh, I could have done that. Oh, I wish I had seen that. Oh, the clue was there and I fill in the blank about it. So I'm curious, do you still have emotions like that too in the decisions that you've made and the way that you're working? Or is there this point where it doesn't matter anymore?
Yeah,
The middle
I'll be honest with you. At this point in my life and career, I don't have a lot of fear about the business side.
way? Hmm.
Obviously, I fear for the safety of my kids, and I fear for the safety of my fiance and my good friends and my family members. But when it comes to business, I've learned if you build it right and you veer, you can move it back to center very easy.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily have a lot of fears from that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have fear from just not knowing.
Yeah,
Being,
there's a lot of that. Yeah.
yeah, being an entrepreneur for the first time is the great unknown. And I
Hmm.
tell people, look, you're not going to know a lot of the mistakes until you actually make them. And that's just unfortunate, but that's just the fact. And
Hmm.
I'm in the risk business. I tell people that the venture capital and baseball are very much the same. If you
Ooh.
could bat 300 in either, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
And so there's risk involved, and risk can invoke fear.
It can. And that's a very One of the ways to work with that and to learn from it, I'm going to call it leverage, because we can use fear as a propellant, as a
Sure.
motivator, pause to look a little closer, whatever it is, right? There's all kinds of ways that we can use that. So I'm thinking about things that we don't know what we don't know, especially if we're anywhere in this cone of doubt where we think we know it all, but we really don't. So people looking at us go, okay, we got you. And that have been there, like you have been there, and can say, okay, I see where you're at. What are the things that you guide and say, hey, this is actually what you can influence? This is actually what's in your control, which is not a lot.
I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they typically start off with a single founder. Maybe they're a technical founder and they're a good programmer, a good designer. And I tell them to do two things. First, get a real good understanding of what you know, but then also get a really good understanding of what you don't know and
Mhm.
fill those gaps with people that you know and trust. Because as an investor, they want a team that they're going to invest in. So if you are a good programmer developer, but you don't have accounting skills or marketing skills or organizational skills, you can try to do it yourself. And a lot of entrepreneurs do to a period of time. But at some point, bring in the experts in those categories so you can focus on being the expert in yours.
Mhm.
And I start with that with a lot of entrepreneurs because a lot of them start as solopreneurs. As soon as you start to want to raise money, investors are going to ask you, who is your team? And they're not interested in a team of one. And I think that's the early pieces of advice I give entrepreneurs. Surround yourself with people smarter than yourself in areas that you're not smart at all in.
And develop really good relationships.
Absolutely.
Understand where are the triggers in them? What makes you so angry that they do? What do you do that makes them angry? Not because you have to change, but because that's how you know you work dynamically. If
Mhm.
I'm under pressure, I'm going to act a certain way. If you know that about me and you see that pressure coming, you can meet me where I'm at from your expertise in your lane so we can stay hooked together by the arms to
Mhm.
keep moving forward. And I
Yeah,
think that it's easy to say, surround yourself with smart people. And it's easy to say, have good relationship. That only comes by getting in the mud together.
I agree. I tell entrepreneurs, especially when they're out there trying to find investors for their startup, they ask me, when should I begin to make contact with investors? I tell them 6 months before they need it. Yeah, you've got to
Yeah.
build relationships because people do business with people they know
Mhm,
and people they like.
mhm,
And so, what you want to do is get to know a lot of people and
mhm,
try to get enough of them to like you. And
mhm.
I think that's really where relationships come in. And because the reality is, when you're someone was so desperate to bring in an investor, they brought in a bad investor, someone
Oh,
who didn't have the same personality, the same agenda, didn't match from a personality standpoint, and it was a disaster. And I tell entrepreneurs all the time, do your homework on them also, because in most cases, if not all, a bad investor is worse than no investor.
was there ever an idea that you were like, nope, for me, and somebody else got it and it turned into something crazy awesome?
Yes, every
Can you
time.
share one or is that no, you don't want to share? Because
Wow. I see so many deals. I don't know which ones to pick. And I had an opportunity to invest in Google
wow.
and I passed. And obviously, that was a less than intelligent decision. And so, again, it's happened many times because obviously, sometimes a good idea may
Mhm.
not be a good idea today, but it could be a good idea tomorrow. And
Yeah.
there are many examples of that.
I think that's such a key thing to say and to have be part of this conversation because I know one of the things I work with is how do you prevent competing priorities and how do you ensure that you're doing the right thing right now because all of these things are possible but if they're not aligned let it go and so be it. So being able to say hey I could have done that and I didn't all that and not having as much fear about the business side of things. It'll work out or it won't. To your point, if you're batting 300, here you go, you're winning.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, so you have a high tolerance for risk?
Yeah. You have
Yeah.
to in my business.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have a high tolerance for money risk.
I have high tolerance for a lot of risk. I've done a lot of risky things in my life. When I got out of
I
grad
think
school,
kite surfing's risky.
what's that? Yeah,
I
it
said
is.
I'm risky.
I've done a lot of risky things in my life. I've broken some bones. I've gotten some trouble in some other countries because I just took risk. I think sometimes I'm a firm believer. You got one shot at this. You might as well make it interesting.
Yeah. I think that is fantastic. And have you so You said you're good at getting out of trouble too. Have you ever gotten into a place that it took longer than you wanted it to? Or was there any time it was like, I actually did not get all the way out of that one?
Oh, yeah. A couple of times on the investment side, I got involved in some companies which were famous for their failure. And I
Okay.
decided to stick it out longer than I should have. Back in the 90s, I was very active in the internet boom
Yep.
and had some very good success during that time. The reality is, I stuck my neck out on a few that I probably shouldn't have, believed in things that I shouldn't have. Sometimes you let the rose colored glasses apply in investment and entrepreneurism as much as anything else. So, yeah, absolutely, that's happened.
And we can have all the right people and we can have the right idea and it can still be the wrong time.
Absolutely. And there's great examples of that. I
Yeah.
remember during the 90s, two of these tremendous early ideas. One was pets.com and
Oh, yeah.
the other was a company called Webvan.
No way. I remember
And
them. Okay.
and both of them were colossal failures because they were too early.
Huh?
Now, today you have Chewy and all other places to buy pet products.
Yeah.
And I just got a delivery from Walmart, my food, and another delivery from another store of my food. They
Yeah.
both existed. Webvan, they ended up with the only thing left was the sock puppet. And with pets.com and Webvan, spent well over $1 billion and lost it in record time.
Yep.
Okay, so again, great ideas need to be aligned with great timing.
Yeah. And I think that might be something for anybody who's listening right now that is disheartened or coming off of something is, hey, if it's the right thing, the
Right,
conversations will keep coming back to you. So don't give up on it. Also, don't put all your eggs in that basket because it feels like it emerges. In my experience, the failures that I've had, there were clues there. I should have listened. There's a lot of shouldas in that. And at
hmm,
the same point in time, I'm like, if I were to do it again, if I were to do it today with this knowledge that I have today, I would never have done it. However,
right,
in that moment, it would have taken some other weird things to play out unexpectedly for me to actually see the clues. And
right.
that's an okay thing because that's how we learn. That's how we get
Sure.
our own wisdom.
You have to fail forward.
Yeah.
You have to take the things that you've made mistakes on and use them to be better the next time around.
Mhm.
Both of my sons played sports, and I told them, look, if you missed that play, figure out why you missed that play and don't do it again.
Right. Did they play?
Same applies in business.
What sports did your boys play?
My boys play basketball. My
Mhm.
younger son played football and lacrosse.
Yeah. Okay. I think lacrosse is a very interesting sport, and I love how popular it is
I
becoming.
love it.
But I've never actually watched a game, and I don't think I know any of the rules. Doesn't mean I wouldn't like it. But and by the way, can you do that in business? Can you join with not knowing any of the rules or how to play?
That's being an entrepreneur, quite frankly, is breaking
I
the rules.
exactly.
The reality is, I tell people, like I said, the reason I'm not an employee because I'm not a rule follower.
Mhm.
I'm a rule creator, and I know ways to. My good job is to get around the rules or in a proper way.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if the speed limit's 35, I'm going 42.
If your week feels like you're being pulled from one demand to the next, this is for you. The daily grind is the #1 killer of business instinct, pulling you and your team away from your vision. Reclaim your strategic edge with the Present Retreat. This free guide from Red Direction is a simple, powerful framework to carve out the space you need, to filter out the noise, make the right decisions, and lead with clarity. Visit presentretreat.com.
Scott Kelly, CEO of Black Dog Venture Partners, has so much to share. Let's hear what else he has to say. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. Tell me how this ranks up in your peeve list. When people come to me and say, I haven't found a process to do that yet. I'm like, duh, do it. Make your own.
Yeah. I think the reality sometimes I think sometimes that comes up with not just business, but in life and
Yeah.
relationships is if someone wants someone else to solve the problem, that's the kind of response they're going to give.
Yes.
And I say, look, we have people all the time, entrepreneurs I work with come to us and say, look, we don't know how to solve this problem. And go back and
Mhm,
come back again and go back again.
mhm.
Because the reality is you're going to learn more by doing it and solving it yourself than having someone else tell you what the problem is, what the solution is. I can tell my kids how to study better, but the reality is a bad grade is going to teach them how to study better.
Cheers to that. Because I find myself going, maybe you should follow this path, or asking the questions and shaping something, even though I didn't do it, even
Mhm.
though my whole experience is not that, the mainstream norm. What'd you do to get here? Whose path did you follow? Nobody but your own. You might have grabbed a tip here or a short process there, but how much did you actually grab that you're still using today in terms of how to do it? And the
Well,
answer is
I
never a
think that's
giver.
I think it's important, but also I think you do need to be a sponge with successful people and smart people.
Of course.
I've learned from some great people in my career. I'm a big believer. I don't judge a book by its cover.
Never.
One of my favorite books of all time was called The Millionaire Next Door.
I love The
And
Millionaire Next Door.
yeah, George Staley and I were
Yeah.
friends for a while he
Cool.
was at Georgia State. And honestly, it happened in my real life experience. It happened to me. My
Uh-huh.
very first day on the job after college. I went from New York to Lafayette, Louisiana to be a stockbroker.
Mhm.
And I get Mr. Abear on the telephone. He buys $500,000 of an investment. Meanwhile, this is my second day. I'm 22 years and change. And my boss goes, look, go out there and pick up that check. And so I go out to Mr. Abear's house to pick up that check, and it is a metal shack. He is sitting on a rocking chair with 7 teeth in his mouth, and he's whittling wood. At the end of my meeting, he gives me a check for $2 million. And again, I think it's my second, maybe third day in the business. I said, Mr. Abear, I don't want to be rude, but how did you get this money? And he walked me to the side of his house, and what used to be rice fields was oil derricks as far as the eye could see. Mr. Abear was making $8 million a month in oil royalties. If I would have drove up, looked at the house, and kept driving, I would have missed that opportunity. And he ended up becoming a phenomenal client and backed one of my companies several years later.
And I think I love that. And I agree with you about not judging a book by its cover. Are you an avid reader
I read a fair amount, not as much as I would
or
like.
consume, I guess,
Yeah,
news,
I'm a
right?
constant
Yeah.
consumer of information, yes.
Me too. That's I like a good TV show and a good movie, but I read or listen and consume what people and their expertise way more than I do anything else.
Right.
And I think that's what makes me feel comfortable going, okay, there's a lot of ways to get to that. I just have to pick the one that might work for me right now because
Right.
they've got the information. They can be the spark and here we go. By the way, that is like the best story ever. That I was not expecting that to be the outcome of the story. And what a lesson to learn. And
Yep.
knowing that he still chose to just sit on his porch and whittle wood. That's probably what he did on the days he wasn't working in his rice fields.
Agreed. I found early in my career, fortunately, that the people that have true wealth aren't the people that are driving around in Maseratis and wearing Armani suits.
Yes. Okay, so tell me, what are one of your values that you make decisions by, that you show up by, that you learn by, that you seek out?
My father really was a good businessman, a good salesman, and he really harped on me. Probably one of the most important things is 15 minutes early is on time is late, anything after is unacceptable. And I would go to meetings a half an hour early, sit in my car so I would not be late. I find that's important. I think that respects people's time and it shows that you care. I'm a big believer in under promising and over delivering. In every engagement, I know what I'm going to do. I don't tell them everything. I let them be pleasantly surprised. And I think those are things. And be a man or woman of your word. Those are things that are important to me. I tell people I'm an A type personality. I'm a New Yorker. I move fast and I tell them that ahead of time. I go, look, if we hit the go button, it's go.
Mhm.
I'm going to go. So you can decide to be in the front seat, the back seat, or on the side of the road. Those are the beliefs I have, and that's what's led my business life.
Okay, that's great. And all I can think of now that you said that was roads where we're going, we don't need no roads.
Yeah.
That's quoted daily in my life. Speaking of, we don't need no roads. What do you think of all this stuff with AI, and what do you see the potential being for what we don't even know is coming?
Obviously, it's a transformational technology. Someone asked me a while back, is AI the equivalent of the internet? I told them no, AI is the equivalent of electricity. It is transformational. And in my line of work, from both sides of it, entrepreneurs now, especially tech entrepreneurs, can build their businesses differently, more efficiently, and with less money. Investors can use AI to do better due diligence, to look at more opportunities, and make better decisions. Again, it's like any tool, you have to apply it correctly. A hammer is a great tool when it hits a nail. It's a less great tool when it hits your thumb. And I think the reality is it's like any tool, it's going to be transformational. And I think we are in an interesting time. I was there during the internet boom and the internet bust.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Um, we are that there'll be a bust in AI with some companies who,
Yeah.
quite frankly, just decide that putting an AI wrapper on a bad idea still makes it a bad idea.
How it's the same as the internet,
Yeah, agree.
right? To
Agree.
agree with the electricity comparison, and then all of us is going to have that. And I think it's going to be faster. Do you think it's going to be a faster to the
Oh,
buck?
absolutely. It's already faster.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
already faster. I heard recently it's every 7 days. Yes,
Ah!
it's insane.
Okay.
So, because AI, just the computational power is insane. But again, I think it's going to be transformational. It already is in some cases. But now for the entrepreneurs listening, they have to learn how to apply that and use it most effectively.
And I think you touched on that when you said that it's going to change the way that we do business. Now, taking that to the next piece is what I'm watching in disruption from the outside looking in across industries. And I can't wait to hear what your experience is here too. Is that it doesn't matter about technology. If you're on the front, or if you're at the top of the curve, if you're one of the lagging people, okay, fine. Whatever, that's fine. But our expectations, the intentionality needed. So when it's time to go, get some funding, whatever funding is that's going to look like. And in your case, it would be the VC side, right? There is the expectation of what you have done, can do with what you already have is changing. And so that is a place where if we think it's the same way it was the last time we even did our last pitch for our last idea,
Right.
we could be doing ourselves a disservice.
Absolutely. I had to have a couple of disheartening conversations with some entrepreneurs that didn't understand the new norm. This entrepreneur came to me. He wanted to build a software product, and he told me that he needed $5 million and 18 to 24 months to build an MVP. And I go, no, you don't. You need maybe $10,000, someone who can program the agents and the vibe coders and put together an MVP and actually put together a product where you can sell. And I think entrepreneurs have to realize that now. They have to realize that investors now have an expectation that you can get to product market fit. You can get to a viable product you can sell much faster with far less money. And it's happening every single day. And I think especially tech entrepreneurs really have to understand the new norm.
So, do you think we'll ever fully move away from investing in an idea? Like you have to have the MVP in some capacity one
Not,
before
no,
okay,
not,
that's
not,
good.
not
Okay.
at all. Obviously, there's some industries where it's again changing,
Yeah.
but the idea stays. Obviously, you've got industries like pharmacy and biotech and other things that do have an approval process and do take more time. And again, I don't necessarily think MVP is a dirty word, but the reality is a lot of entrepreneurs now should be able to build something that they can put in front of potential customers and at least get feedback.
Mhm.
It's important.
Does it help you as a VC investor to see that path laid out?
Oh, absolutely. Entrepreneurs we talk to on a daily basis, when they are trying to pitch or share their vision and mission with myself or investors, they have to have a clear path of how to get from point A to point B. I tell a lot of entrepreneurs start with the end in mind because that's where the investors are looking at. They probably care somewhat about what you're building and who you're building it for. Their primary interest in the end and how they can get a return of their money and a return on their money. And you have to start with that mindset when you talk to investors.
It's perfect because the investors, this is a tool to help them with their goals, and this is a tool for the business to reach their goals.
Yep.
And they don't have to be on the same path, they just have to cross.
Right.
I want to know what makes it bold? What makes it bold to be intentional about knowing yourself to be able to create your own success?
I think when you're bold, lean into your strengths, become even better at your strengths, and don't be bold about what you don't know. We have conversations all the time With entrepreneurs, they are intimidated to tell you something they don't know. And I'd rather have someone see bold, they go, you know what? That's a really good question. I don't know. Let me go find out. And you've got to be bold about trying new things. You got to be bold about getting kicked in the teeth and keep moving. Entrepreneurs fail at a rapid rate. An entrepreneur that started today, the likelihood they could be in business 2 years from now is very small, with or without funding. So you have to be bold because bold gets you up in the morning. Bold makes you do something you don't want to do. Tomorrow morning, the light will work and you'll work out tomorrow because you're bold. And I think that's what bold is when it comes to entrepreneurship.
And that brings us to the close of another powerful and fresh perspective on the Bold Business Podcast. In today's volatile landscape, growth is a double-edged sword. To truly thrive, you must engage with your strategy, not just react to the day-to-day. Without absolute alignment, your company faces a stark choice: outmaneuver or be outmaneuvered, grow or get left behind. Thank you for listening, and a special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production.